This video is about build orders. If you don't know what that is, just keep watching. Now, your build order can and should vary based on your circumstances, what map/server you're playing on, and even who you're playing against. So rather than giving you a step-by-step instruction, I'll be teaching concepts and guiding principles, which will hopefully be enough to help you get started on creating your own. I'm going to start this video by explaining what a build order is for those who don't know, and if you do know, great, keep watching. I'll try to keep that part as short as I can so we can get into the good stuff. Now, by definition, a build order is the order in which you build what. There are tons of resources in Mindustry, and most casual players just make them in whatever order seems available / most logical at the time. The purpose of a build order is to optimize how much time you spend early game creating each resource so you can move on to the later game tech. Most casual players on Arakir can get thorium/carbide within 15 to 30 minutes depending on their experience, the map they're playing on, they have teammates, etc. Players who have a specific build order ingrained into their memory can get thorium in just a few minutes and carbide a few minutes after that. This is incredibly relevant as a player refines their skill and progresses overall as a Mindustry player. For example, PvP servers and even some very difficult attack and survival maps are just an arms race. Even a few seconds of lost time matters. The winner, the vast majority of the time, is whoever gets the biggest guns first. I've addressed this problem before on my channel, but there is a massive skill gap among the Mindustry community. At the higher end, we have players who can adapt the build order at a moment's notice, who have schematics highly refined to their playstyle, all the ratios, factors in the game memorized, some even doing mental math on the fly, as well as strategical thinking as a critical part of how they play. One of the first steps you can take to become a better and faster Mindustry player is developing a build order that is uniquely yours. I play on the Eviction server, which is a Hex PvP server. To my knowledge, at least, it is the most competitive server on Mindustry. On Eviction, your starting loadout is as follows: 1.1k beryllium, 410 graphite, 410 silicon, and 200 tungsten. That is all you have to get started. It is important to note that it is a lot more than what some maps and servers give you, meaning you don't have to start from scratch, but it isn't enough to immediately get endgame drills and resources. You'll have to get there on your own. If we take a second to actually look at the layout of our spawn area, as well as the build costs of our buildings, we can evaluate what options we have available. We have plenty of beryllium and graphite, and we have access to ground tungsten. We have 4 vents for power, giving us a power budget of 720, and most hexes have wall tungsten as well as wall thorium. The resources we can immediately start producing are beryllium, graphite, silicon, and tungsten. Now we have exactly 200 tungsten starting out, which takes us to a crossroad. We can either jump to the next step in tech and start producing oxide, which will give us access to large plasma bores, or we can take a jump in unit production and start producing locusts. Both require an electrolyzer, meaning we don't have enough tungsten to build both an oxidation chamber as well as a unit fabricator. The route you take ultimately is up to your best judgment in the moment. If you have a close neighbor which poses an immediate threat, then it would be wise to err on the side of safety and immediately go for tier 2 units. If you have time before you encounter your first threat, then going for oxide immediately will save you so much time as it allows access to large plasma bores much sooner. Now, there are 2 major bottlenecks in your first hex. The first, which we already kind of addressed, is tungsten. Tungsten is a weird spot in the progression tree. On one hand, you have access to it fairly early through the impact drill, but on the other hand, the impact drill is so terrible that it is unsustainable as a legit means of tungsten beyond the early game. You can gain access to the large plasma bore, which is quite exceptional in every way, but in order to do so, you have to already have tungsten as well as oxide, which requires, you guessed it, tungsten. Because of the way that the game is designed, the impact drill is essential to jumpstart your economy into being able to support a much more endgame economy. The second bottleneck, which you will run into in your first hex, is power. If you're paying attention, we had a power budget, which we definitely went over by now. Since we don't yet have access to large amounts of tungsten and oxide to make chemical combustion chambers, we have to rely on vents to produce power. On Eviction, every single hex has 4 vents, so the easiest way to get more power is to make stills to expand to neighboring hexes. By now, you can hopefully see why it is important to understand the principles behind a build order rather than just blatantly copying somebody else's. If you are not playing on the Eviction server, you will likely not run into the problem where you run out of vents this early, so you can naturally adapt this part of your build order according to your circumstances. Okay, we can actually jump into an example real quick of me showing off the build order I usually use. So I immediately go for beryllium, because if I don't go for it, I will run out of building material, and you don't want that. And then I set up an electro basically right away because I know I'm gonna need an electro anyways for my oxidation chamber. So I set it up right now just so I can boost my bores, so I can get away with making only 8 of them. And I make 8 actually because that's the belt max throughput. If you put, as you can see, some of the bores are even turning off right now, so. I set up more vents because silicon orcs eat power for breakfast. I don't want to run out quite yet. I set up a unit factory so I can try to get my second hex as early as possible so I can get additional power. And I'm out of beryllium. Then the very next thing I do is I set up tungsten. Now there aren't really any good tungsten patches. This one is probably about half as efficient as they normally are, which ends up making it take longer for me to get access to a large plasma bore, but that's just how it goes. You just have to adapt on the fly usually, since these hexes are randomly generated. Okay, and I need more beryllium, but I'm going to set up another oxide chamber before that, or oxide chamber before that, so that way I can start building up oxide for a large plasma bore. And then now that I finally have the tungsten and oxide up and running, I can finally start to beef up my beryllium. Now notice I don't even have graphite because setting up graphite takes time that I didn't want to spare that early game. So up until this point, I've just been hand mining graphite the entire game, which you can usually get away with for quite a while. Okay, I almost have 25 oxide, which 25 is how much you need for a large plasma bore. So I start setting mine up right now. If I didn't have a terrible tungsten patch, I'd also have enough tungsten by now to set it up and running. But because I don't have enough tungsten, I can't quite get it up yet, but that's okay. We are 3 minutes in, by the way. 3 minutes, I'm getting my large plasma bore. It would be up by now if I didn't have a terrible tungsten patch. Okay, and finally, I'm sick of hand mining graphite, so I place a massive graphite bore. Okay, now that I have my second hex, I'm spending power since I'm already out of power. I'm already under budget. I'm probably at like 80% power, so everything is functioning at like 80% capacity right now. I'm just estimating, but that's probably what I'd say. And then at 3 minutes and 50 seconds, I finally get that large plasma bore up. Now that I have more tungsten, I should get the second bore up really quickly. Second bore is up, setting up a second oxide chamber, and right now what I'm doing is I'm setting up my nitrogen preemptively, so that's one less thing I have to do later while I'm waiting. I like to do stuff like wiring while I'm waiting. Like if I'm gonna be doing nothing anyways, I might as well be wiring preemptively. It saves time and is overall more efficient. I did placement oxide and I won't be able to build it yet. Requires 60 oxide. I have like 34 right now. And I'm also out of hydrogen, so I go over and add my second vent to the electrolyzer to max out how much hydrogen that is producing. And then I start going for thorium, because my goal with this is just to demonstrate efficiency in build order. And I also want to show that you can get thorium and carbide very quickly. So I actually go for carbide after this. Set up more power, because I know my power is going to be a little bit thin right now. I still am producing surplus, but not too much. So I start preparing for the next phase by adding more vents that are blueprinted. Start getting thorium up so I can have enough thorium for my carbide when I'm ready for that. And here is my carbide. At 6 minutes, I start setting up my carbide. I'm on single player, so if you haven't noticed, the game actually pauses for like a split second to open the schematic menu. Kind of annoying, but oh well. It doesn't do that in a real online match, obviously. If you haven't noticed, I've used this schematic many times. I am very quick with the inputs. I have all the inputs memorized, and I actually see I'm running out of silicon right now, so I placed another silicon. I'm gonna go build that before I even finish this oxide, because I am out. And each silicon arc uses approximately two graphite bores, if you didn't know that. So if you're setting up one silicon, needs 2 graphite. If you're setting 2 silicon, needs 4 graphite, etc. 8 minutes, I have my carbide up and running, also my silicon. And right here, I noticed that I misplaced my carbide. So my carbide is 60% efficiency of what it's supposed to be. So yeah, I get a little frustrated, but it's fine. Okay, and right here, I check what I need for a 5x clarite, and I have literally nothing of what I need. So some things is because I just started producing it just now, like the oxide. I will have enough oxide, I'm not worried about that. But the biggest thing is graphite, because claroids are very graphite heavy, so I go for more graphite. And then I know my power is fine at the moment, but once I set up the claroids, it'll definitely not be fine. So I'm setting this up preemptively. Plus I use the hydrogen from it to also power the claroids. I'm still not okay on silicon, even though I have 3 silicon right now, so I set up another 2. Okay, right now I'm looking at placement, because I know once I set the silicon up, I will be chilling on resources for it. By the time I'm done building it, I will have enough resources to finish it. So I'm looking for placement, but I realized the only tungsten patch I'll have is being blocked, so I just tear down the couple of stuff real quick. At 10 minutes, I have carbide already, I have thorium, I have decent amounts of oxide, and I'm setting up a 5x. If I went straight for my 5x and skipped the whole carbide thing, I would have been able to have this up faster, but I just wanted this. I decided that's not what I wanted to do. A 5x uses 3 silicon arcs, which uses 7 sand bores. These are 200% walls, by the way. If you're playing on a server with different walls, it'll be a different amount of sand crushers. So just keep that in mind. Now I could have had this up even faster if I used build towers, which I could have used. I always had to add an electric heater to my already existing nitro and just add some build towers. And I could have had this up faster. I chose not to. I honestly kind of forgot. So, as I got, okay, my claroids are done. This needs to fill up now. And the reason I'm setting up power is because I want to make a T4 factory. I'm cruising at this point. I have a really good pace. I could be slightly faster, but only marginal gains at this point. This is very close to my max speed right here. I'm going very fast. And my claroids are filling up. We're chilling on power. And I placed down my T4 factory. Now this one I don't have all the inputs memorized. Sand and graphite are easy, but it also needs graphite for the cyanogen synthesizer, and I don't exactly have that memorized because it's based off a percentage. It's not just a flat number, so I don't know what it is for this schematic. So I just place 4, hoping it's enough. Said thing, I don't know how much I need for beryllium, so I just overshoot it. It's better to be over than under. Right now I'm looking for tungsten. I know that's the last item input, and I don't see any wall tungsten, so I just go for an eruption drill, which is definitely inferior to a large plasma bore, but I just place it. It's convenient. That's actually, like, I actually deleted that real quick because it's actually slightly short on how much tungsten this needs. But this is just for demonstration purposes, so I end up going for it and placing it anyways. Even though it is slightly short on tungsten. The last two inputs I have are art and slag. And that's the power of the pyro and the stuff for the signage on. Okay, and at 15 minutes and 30 seconds, I'm done. I have a 5x Claroi, I have carbide, and I have T4. So that just shows how crazy a build order can be once you really nail it in into muscle memory, ingrain it in your brain basically. So the last thing I want to cover is how knowing someone's build order can help you beat them. On the eviction server, we have a lot of regular players who you fight over and over and over again, and the more you fight them, the more you get to know their build order. Once you get to that point, you can really know what to expect and how to beat them. For example, Olpence is a very aggressive player. His build order usually involves getting Locust very early and just hammering down on Locusts super early. He's a very powerful player early game. And this works really well if he is close to his opponent. It works a little bit less effectively if he spawns further away or across the map. He's still an amazing player, absolutely. But his play style and his build order just doesn't do as well against those players, so you have a stronger chance. Because he goes for Locusts so often, if you are a fair distance away, you can overwhelm him with a large number of Claroids, since Claroi blobs just shred through Locusts like crazy, assuming they don't have a super good, well-shaped Locust arc, and you are decent at Claroi micro. Another example is, this is a screenshot by Steve Jockey. He's another regular player on the eviction server. In the Discord server, he posted this, and this is the new build order he wanted to try, where he gets Locust, then Claroi, then Carbide, then more Claroi, then Surge, then Obviates. This is him trying to come up with a valid Obviate rush. And the problem with Obviate rushes is that you're left vulnerable to ground assaults, which is why he's going for so many ground units. But with this knowledge, we can actually pick apart this build order and come up with a counter. So something he does, he goes for 3 Locusts and then 5 Claroi. And we can use this to our advantage. Because he starts with 3 Locusts, if we start with a 5 Locusts, it'll take a little bit more time for us to set up, but it'll be worth it in the end. We can start with a 5 Locusts, and then we can go for another 5 Locusts after that, and we'll have 10 Locusts out producing him. And plus, because we get that 5 Locusts, probably after he gets that 3 Locusts up, but before he gets that 5 Claroi up, his Clarois will just be slowly trickling out by the time we have a large number of Locusts built up. And the Clarois match up very poorly against Locusts when they're in small numbers. So what you want is you don't want his Claroi army to build up, so you want to strike before that. And then he goes for Carbide 200, which again, he's spending more time making Carbide instead of units, so he can use that time to just hammer down on Locusts. An alternative strategy you could do is you could go for Anthicus, just rush Anthicus. You want some Locusts, maybe go for a 3x Locust and then a 2x Anthicus. And the reason we want Anthicus is because he has no good way of dealing with Anthicus at this point in the game. He's spending time setting up Claroi, which do very poorly against Anthes, and he's spending time setting up Carbide, which is time that he's not setting up more units and defenses. The most effective counter towards Anthicus is Afflicts. Afflicts basically stop Anthicus. They hard counter Anthicus basically. And he does not set up the Surge until way late. So that just gives us more and more time just to build up more and more Anthes until he can't handle them anymore. So hopefully this video was informative in a lot of ways. to kind of lay the groundwork for you to understand what a build order is and experiment with your own. My build order I shared is a pretty good starting point, but you should adapt it based on your circumstances and your playstyle. I really hope you guys learned a lot from this. I've been meaning to make a build order video for literally forever, I just haven't yet. And one more thing I also forgot to mention too, is that Goo has an excellent video on his build order. And I've tried looking up build order on YouTube, and there's like no other videos other than that one. So if you play Serpulo and you wanna see a Serpulo build order, check out his video. It's really, really good. If you have any questions or any topics you want me to cover in the future, just let me know in the comments or just DM me on Discord. I don't care, man. But yeah, I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.